Every year, my college friends and I planned a summer getaway before the semester started again. This time, we chose a secluded lake house about 3 hours outside the city. It was a last-minute rental, found through a small listing site. The owner, an older woman named Martha, assured us the place was safe and perfect for a peaceful weekend. It was me, my best friend Ryan, his girlfriend Emily, and our friend Josh. Just the 4 of us. No parties, no crazy drinking, just a quiet trip before life got hectic again. Or at least, that was the plan. The drive to the lake house was smooth. And when we arrived, it looked just like the photos. 2 floors, a wraparound deck, a dock leading to the water. The trees surrounding it made it feel even more isolated. The key was in a lockbox by the door, just like Martha had told me. Inside, everything seemed fine. A little outdated, maybe, but cozy. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs and a small guest room downstairs. We unpacked, made dinner, and sat out by the lake until it got dark. It wasn't until we were getting ready for bed that Ryan noticed something weird. The back door was unlocked. I was sure we hadn't opened it. We had used the front door to bring in our stuff. But again, we had just arrived. Maybe one of us had absent-mindedly left it open. I locked it, and we went to bed. I should have checked the whole house. The next morning, everything seemed normal. We went swimming, grilled burgers, and played card games. By evening, we were exhausted. We all went to bed early. Sometime in the middle of the night, I woke up. I didn't know why at first. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate, coming from the hallway. I thought it was one of my friends getting up to use the bathroom. But then I noticed something that sent a chill through me. The footsteps weren't coming from upstairs. They were coming from downstairs. I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. I crept toward the bedroom door, my heart hammering. When I peeked into the hallway, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The guest room door was open. We hadn't used that room. And then I heard it. Breathing. Slow, heavy, coming from inside the room. There was someone in the house. I backed away as quietly as I could and went straight to Ryan's room. I shook him awake, whispering that there was someone downstairs. His eyes went wide, and he immediately woke Emily. Josh was in the other room. We grabbed our phones and texted him to stay put. Then we heard something that made my stomach drop. A creak, the sound of someone coming up the stairs. Ryan grabbed the heaviest thing he could find, a metal lamp from the bedside table. We stood by the door, waiting. The breathing got louder. Then, a shadow passed under the door. He was right outside. We barely had time to react before the doorknob turned. Ryan and I pushed against the door as hard as we could. The man on the other side shoved back, but we had the advantage. Emily called 911, whispering to the operator. Josh, in the next room, made a bold move. He opened his door and started screaming for help, hoping to scare the intruder off. It worked. The man bolted down the stairs. We heard the back door slam, but we didn't move. We waited, listening. That's when we heard something terrifying. The sound of a car starting. Not our car, his. The cops arrived within 10 minutes, but the guy was already gone. We gave them our descriptions, showed them the guest room where he had clearly been hiding. Inside, they found empty food wrappers, dirty clothes, and a knife. The worst part, they found a set of keys. One of them fit the back door. He hadn't broken in. He had a copy of the key. That's when Martha, the owner, dropped a bombshell. She didn't know the guy, that she had hired a local handyman to do maintenance before we arrived. He had access to the house. 2 days later, the police found him. His car was parked outside another rental home, and inside, he was hiding again. Last summer, my wife Claire and I rented a lake house for a week with our 2 kids, Ethan, 8, and Lily, 5. We wanted a quiet getaway, somewhere far from the city, where we could fish, swim, and just be together without distractions. We found a place listed online, advertised as a secluded retreat. It was perfect, a 2-story cabin with a dock, a big yard for the kids to play in, and dense woods surrounding the property. The nearest town was about 20 miles away. We arrived on a Monday afternoon. The house looked exactly like the photos. except one thing stood out. The back door was unlocked. I assume the cleaning crew forgot to lock it after preparing for our stay. I made a mental note to double-check all the locks before bed. That first night, everything felt normal. We grilled dinner, let the kids run around, and by 9 p.m., we were all exhausted. At around 3 a.m., I woke up. Not because of a noise, just a feeling. Like someone was in the house. I sat up, listening. The house was silent except for the occasional creak. I told myself it was nothing, forced myself to lie back down, and eventually fell asleep. But in the morning, I noticed something strange. The kitchen chairs had moved. They weren't in the same position we left them. One was slightly pulled out. Another was turned at an angle. I asked Claire if she had been up during the night. She shook her head. We both agreed it was odd, but maybe one of us had moved them without realizing it. We let it go. That was mistake number 1. After a full day on the lake, the kids crashed early. Claire and I stayed up, watching a movie in the living room. At around 11 p.m., Claire went to check on the kids. A minute later, she called my name, her voice tight, almost panicked. I ran upstairs and found her standing in Ethan's doorway. She pointed at the window. It was open, not just unlocked, but open about 6 inches. We hadn't opened any windows since arriving. I was sure of that. The thought of someone opening it while Ethan slept just feet away made my stomach twist. I closed it, locked it, and searched the house again. No signs of forced entry. No footprints outside. Nothing. I checked every lock, turned on the alarm system, and we tried to sleep. By the third night, at around 2:45 a.m., I woke up again. But this time, there was a noise. A faint scratching sound. I held my breath, straining to hear. It was coming from downstairs. My mind raced. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A soft thud, like someone had stepped inside. I sat up, heart pounding. Claire was still asleep. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera app. The cameras showed nothing. The front door was closed. The back door was closed. Everything looked normal, but I knew someone was there. I crept to the bedroom door, easing it open, just a crack. The hallway was pitch black. My ears strained, but the house was silent now. Eventually, I convinced myself it was my imagination. That was mistake number 2. The fourth day. By this point, Claire and I were both uneasy. We tried to act normal for the kids, but we knew something was off. That evening, Ethan ran up to me while playing outside. "Dad, who's that?" I followed his gaze toward the tree line. There was no one there. I asked him what he saw. He just shrugged. "Some guy standing in the trees." We went inside, locked everything, and kept the alarm set. We should have left that night. The final night. I barely slept. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke up to a new noise. Not downstairs. Inside our bedroom. It took me a second to process. The room was dark. Claire was next to me. The closet door, which had been shut before bed, was now open about 2 inches. A sliver of darkness beyond it. My whole body locked up. For a long time, I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then, slowly, I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. I shined it toward the closet. Empty. But then I noticed something. The attic hatch inside the closet was slightly ajar. I had checked that hatch when we arrived. It had been shut. A bolt of terror shot through me. I turned to Claire and shook her awake. She saw my face and knew something was wrong. I whispered, "Get the kids, now." I grabbed the baseball bat we had brought for Ethan and stood by the bedroom door while Claire rushed to the kids' rooms. Then I heard something that made my legs almost give out. A soft creak from the attic above. Someone was up there. I backed away, forcing myself to stay calm. Claire came back, holding Lily in her arms, Ethan at her side. We didn't stop to pack. Didn't stop to think. We grabbed our keys, ran downstairs, and got the kids in the car. As I pulled out of the driveway, I looked up at the house one last time. And that's when I saw it. A face, peeking through the attic vent, watching us leave. We drove straight to a motel, not stopping until we were miles away. In the morning, I called the cabin owner. He didn't seem surprised. I asked him who had been in the house. There was a long pause. Then he sighed. Then finally said they have had break-ins. Squatters mostly. The cops were called a few times, but they never found anyone. I pressed him for more details. Finally, he admitted it. He said that over the years, guests had reported strange noises. Open windows, missing food. The attic door had been found open more than once. But the police never found anyone. Nothing was stolen. And that was the part that scared me the most. Whoever was up there, they weren't after valuables. They just wanted to stay inside. While we were there. I don't believe in ghosts or the paranormal. But I don't know if I'll ever be able to go near a lake again. It started when my cousin, Ryan, invited me to stay at his family's lake house for a week. His parents had bought the place years ago, but they barely used it anymore. It was one of those old, slightly run-down cabins tucked deep in the woods, with nothing but the lake and silence for miles. The perfect getaway, or so I thought. The first thing I noticed when I got there was how isolated it felt. The road leading to the house was a single dirt path, winding through thick trees. The nearest neighbors were at least half a mile away. When I arrived, Ryan was already there, standing on the porch, waving. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and dust. The walls were covered in outdated wallpaper, and the furniture was a mix of rustic and neglected. The worst part was the back of the house. Large glass windows overlooked the lake, giving an unobstructed view of the water. At first, it was beautiful, peaceful, but as the days went on, that view started to feel wrong. That first night, I woke up around 2 a.m., feeling uneasy. At first, I thought it was the silence, but then I realized I wasn't hearing silence. I was hearing something faint, a sound coming from outside. I got up and looked out the window. The moon reflected off the still water, casting everything in pale light. But I swear, just past the dock I saw ripples, like something or someone had just slipped beneath the surface. I tried to shake it off and went back to bed, but the feeling stayed. The next day, Ryan and I explored the property. Near the edge of the trees, we found something weird, an old fire pit, surrounded by half-buried beer bottles and rotting wood. It looked like people had partied here, but not recently. The strangest part, a few feet away from the pit, we found a pile of clothes. Torn, dirty, and left there like someone had stripped them off and never returned. Ryan joked that maybe the last visitors had too much to drink and went skinny dipping. That something about it unsettled me. The clothes looked old, like they'd been there for years. Later that afternoon, we took the canoe out on the lake. The water was still, almost unnaturally so. As we drifted, Ryan pointed out a floating dock a few hundred feet from shore. Used to be a diving platform, he said, but I don't think anyone's used it in years. It was covered in moss, the wood warped from exposure. The more I stared at it, the more I felt a deep discomfort, like we shouldn't be near it. On the second night, the noise came back. This time, it was louder, a faint sound coming from outside. I sat up, heart pounding. Something was moving near the dock. I crept to the window, expecting to see an animal. But instead, I saw something worse. A shape, barely visible, standing knee-deep in the water. I froze. My mind raced for a rational explanation. Maybe it was Ryan messing with me. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But as I blinked, the figure moved. It walked deeper into the lake, until only its head remained above the surface. Then slowly it disappeared. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I told Ryan about what I saw. He laughed it off, but I could tell it unsettled him. Later that afternoon, we decided to hike through the woods, following an overgrown trail near the house. A few minutes in, we found something disturbing. An old rusted-out truck, half buried in leaves and vines. The doors were open, the inside gutted. There was no license plate. Ryan swore he'd never seen it before. Something about it felt wrong, like it had been abandoned in a hurry. We left quickly. That evening, Ryan suggested we stay inside. No more late-night walks, no more sitting on the dock. I didn't argue. By the fourth night, Ryan decided to sleep with his hunting knife under his pillow. I kept a fire poker next to my bed. At some point, I drifted off only to be woken by a sharp, urgent whisper. Ryan. He was sitting up, pale as a sheet, pointing at the window. I turned my head slowly. Outside, near the edge of the trees, stood a figure. Not moving, just watching. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a trick of the light. And it wasn't alone. Further back, half hidden in the darkness, were more of them, standing still, silent, watching. We didn't sleep. At first light, we grabbed our bags and got the hell out of there. Neither of us ever went back. Ryan's parents eventually sold the cabin. We never told them what really happened. A few years later, curiosity got the best of me, and I looked up missing persons reports from that area. I wish I hadn't. A handful of disappearances, all near the lake, all unsolved. And one chilling detail, several of them were last seen at night.